And now we're going to start having our episodes for how to get your Wi-Fi to be a little bit better. My name is Jim Ainge. I own a company called Sky eFIBER and Tech in the City here in Honolulu, Hawaii. I tend to specialize in Wi-Fi for events or providing high bandwidth to events that are in the middle of nowhere, like on the beach in Waikiki or in a park, or even at a building that maybe doesn't have fiber connectivity, but we can bring them fiber speeds to that building. To that end, even though I can provide them high-speed bandwidth, the problem has always been, what about the Wi-Fi? Or the Wi-Fi sucks, or all sorts of problems. And I would tell them that, well, I'm giving you a gigabit, but your Wi-Fi is what it is. Well, there are ways to fix that, and I do that a lot with custom homes. I go and do custom uh, builds for homes, and we do a lot of work there. So my basic thing about Wi-Fi is this. If I could write a letter to Wi-Fi, it would be something like this. Dear Wi-Fi, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And what I mean by that is that Wi-Fi is a great technology. It has changed quite a bit over the years, but there's one thing that is still inherent problem with it. It's a wireless protocol, and because it's wireless, we have things like this. When we do an RF scan, we see a lot of interference where the channels are overlapping each other. This is an RF scan of a 2.4 gigahertz frequency band. And everybody says, well, there's 11 channels there. Shouldn't there not be a problem? Well, the problem is there is a problem. And that problem is that these channels overlap each other. Channel 1 will overlap all the way up until channel 3 and a little bit more. And that means that anything who's on channel 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 actually interferes with channel 1. It's basically self-interference or interference from a neighbor. Now, if you're on channel 6, well, channel 6 doesn't interfere with channel 1. That's good. Channel 11 doesn't interfere with channel 6 or with channel 1. That's good. But those are the only three channels that don't interfere with each other. Every other channel tends to interfere. And then you have situations like this, where you have a lot of Wi-Fi in the area or something in the area that's causing a lot of interference. Now, in this particular example, right over here is channel 10, which is what we're supposed to be operating on. That's what this big block is here. That's channel 10. But you'll notice that there's all this other interference that's very strong all the way across the board, and it's kind of spiky. It's all over the place, and it's causing interference with this system. So how do we go about doing this? Well, one thing is, what they found real quickly is that a lot of things were coming online on the 2.4 gigahertz band. And on 2.4, because there's so many things out there, when you have devices working on 2.4, you're essentially sharing it with a lot of other things out there. If you ever turn on your phone and you see a laundry list of all these other Wi-Fi things out there, okay? Your neighbor's house, if you live in a condominium, heaven forbid a 25-story building like I live in, you will see all these other Wi-Fi channels from all the other units around you because everybody has their own Wi-Fi router. Now, in my particular space, I provide a gigabit speed to my location through a WiGig connection or 60 gigahertz link. So I'm able to get a gigabit speed. As a matter of fact, this is a speed test. I have a Hawaiian Telecom fiber connection that is being fed through Sky eFIBER, my company's connection, through a 60 gigahertz link. And then from there, I have a Wi-Fi router. Now that router, if I plug straight into it, I get speeds of 939 megabits on the download and 300 megabits on the upload. Okay. However, when I go to the 5 gigahertz band on Wi-Fi, now I have a MacBook Pro. A MacBook Pro, the one I have is a late 2013. It's not a brand new one, but with this laptop, I'm able to do 3x3 MIMO under what is called Wi-Fi 5 or 802.11ac. Now, don't worry about the letters and the alphabet and everything else. Just probably follow the new uh, coding that the Wi-Fi Alliance has come up with, and now they call that Wi-Fi 5. And you're going to see a lot of stuff out there about Wi-Fi 6, but let me explain this first. Wi-Fi 5 has a protocol called 802.11ac, but it also has the ability to do uh, multiple channels or multiple antennas. And by combining those channels, you get more bandwidth. So 3 by 3 means 3 antennas, 3 on the transmit, 3 on the receive. And I'm able to combine those 3 and I get speeds of 426 thereabouts megabits on the download and still retaining 300 on the upload. By the way, Hawaiian Telcom fiber connection is considered a gigabit connection. In theory, 1000 megabits down, 300 megabits up. Now, you're never going to really see 1000 megabits all the time or even ever, because of that 1000 megabits that is being transmitted, part of it is taken up by what is called packet headers. Packet headers take up about 6%, almost 6% of the data. So it's very normal to see 940 meg or 930 something meg, even though you have a gig connection. Because of the packet headers, you'd have a loss due to that. Now, the other thing that comes on is the next type of Wi-Fi is something that I refer to as, let me get rid of this background here. Anyway, this one here is 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and we're running it under a 2.2 MIMO antenna system. Our latency is now 2 milliseconds, but our bandwidth dropped down to 183 on the download and 65.4 on the upload. And all that really means is that even though you have 939 or 1000 megabits bandwidth available, the Wi-Fi connection can't do that. It's not capable of it. Okay, at least not this one. And then the worst case, of course, is the 2.4 gigahertz frequency. In my building, 2.4 is a total disaster. There's so much interference going on in the building that I actually see 2.46 megabits on my download and 1.81 on my upload. Yes, there's a decimal point between the 2 and the 4. I'm not even getting 3 megabits on my download, and I'm barely getting 2 megabits on my upload. Not very good if you're going to do a Zoom call, because Zoom requires approximately 3 megabits down and up. So not going to support it very well. So my whole thing today is, and I'm going to be ending this shortly, is that you need to take a look at what channels are your devices operating on. Okay, if they're operating on 2.4, or you have a lot of things in your house that are on 2.4, you may want to make sure that your laptop is not on 2.4. You want to be up on this Wi-Fi 5 or Wi-Fi 4 settings, where you can get a lot more bandwidth, something you can actually work with. Okay, if you just have one name on your Wi-Fi router, and your router says that it's a dual band router, the router is going to decide where it's going to steer your connection, whether it's going to steer it towards 2.4 gigahertz or whether it's going to steer it towards 5 gigahertz. And it doesn't always work well depending on the brand of the router, and even the good brands sometimes screw up on this. So what happens is that you may have a great laptop computer. You may have the ability to do Wi-Fi 5, but for some reason, the router has stuck you onto 2.4 gigahertz, and all of a sudden your performance is just horrible. Okay, so one way around this is to create 2 Wi-Fi networks in your router. If you log into your router, everybody's router is different. Typically, you go into your browser and you will type in 192.168.0.1 or 192.168.1.1. That is the IP address for the router. Most routers, not all of them are the same. Take a look at your instructions. You would log in. You would go in through your admin, put in the password. Again, look at your instructions. If you've changed your password, use that password. Log into your router settings and go in and create two different Wi-Fi channels. One for your 5 gigahertz, one for your 2.4. All your Internet of Things, your light bulbs, doorbells, all these things that are now operating off of Wi-Fi, put it on the 2.4. They don't necessarily need to be really fast just to have a data connection if that's all they need. Okay. But say you have a camera, and that camera is like a Ring doorbell type camera. Some of the older ones only did 2.4, and that's where it's going to stay. So you're going to leave it on 2.4. What you want to do when you log in with your laptop is to go to the 5 gigahertz channel. And one way to ensure that that happens is to create another channel in your router, another network ID, or what they call an SSID, that is identified as 5 gigahertz. You may have seen this sometimes when you go to different places and you'll see the name, of our Wi-Fi 2G, our Wi-Fi 5G. And essentially what that means is that they have created two different networks, one on the 2 gigahertz frequency band and one on the 5 gigahertz frequency band. Some people will spell out 5 GHz, but most people abbreviate it and just call it 5G. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who get that confused and think, oh, look, I have 5G at home. No, we're not talking about the 5G for your mobile phone or that type of 5G. That's a different animal completely. And we're not going to even cover that here. Okay? So essentially, you want to make sure that you create another Wi-Fi access that goes straight to your 5G connection or your 5 gigahertz connection. And that way you can ensure you stay up in the higher bandwidth speeds when you're on 5 gigahertz and have less problems there. So, all right, that'll be it for this particular show. And next time I will talk a little bit more about how to look for the interference. In other words, if you see these charts that I'm using here, this one here, or this here, how to do that, what kind of programs to use, and how you can get these programs, some of them are free, to be able to do your own inspection of your own space and figure out what's going on. Thank you for watching. This has been Jim Ainge from Tech in the City and Sky eFiber.